Who was the American hero in Persia? Little known in America but venerated as a martyr in Iran. Howard Baskerville was a 22-year-old Christian missionary from South Dakota who traveled to Persia in 1907 for a 2-year stint teaching English and preaching the gospel. Well, to understand everything about Howard Baskerville and how he ended up becoming the only American hero of Iran, we should travel back to 1905 in Iran to the times of droughts, famine, poverty, and revolution. Well, you have to know what was going on in Iran and why there was a revolution. Constitutional Revolution of Iran took place between 1905 and 1911 during the Qajar dynasty. The revolution led to the establishment of a parliament in Iran and has been called an epoch-making episode in the modern-day history of Persia. It all began in 1905 with the protest against a foreign director of customs, a Belgian, actually enforcing with bureaucratic rigidity the tax collections to pay for a loan to another foreign source, actually Russians, that financed the Muzaffar-e Shah Qajar's extravagant tour of Europe. The revolutionaries were mainly bazaar merchants, the clergy, and a small group of radical reformers, argued that Iran's oil industry was being sold to the British, while tax breaks on imports and exports and manufactured textiles were destroying Iran's economy, which had been supported by the bazaar merchants, and that the Shah was selling assets to pay interest on the fortune in foreign debt he had accumulated. In December of that year, 2 merchants in Tehran were bastonated for price gouging. The city's merchants rebelled, closing its bazaar. The clergy followed the suit as a result of alliance formed during the tobacco protests. The 2 protesting groups sought sanctuary in Tehran Mosque, but the government entered the mosque and dispersed them. While covering all of the Iranian Constitutional Revolution requires a whole nother video which we'll be putting out in the future. Actually, so far this insight I think would be enough for you to understand the whole picture. In the middle of these protests and anarchy in the country, Howard Baskerville came to the city of Tabriz in the fall of 1907 to teach. His arrival in Iran coincided with the period when Muhammad Ali Shah in Tehran shutting down the parliament and dismantled the constitutional basis and ruled the period that is known as a short tyranny in Iran. At the same time, the people of Tabriz led by Sattar Khan and Baghar Khan rose up to restore the constitutionalism, and subsequently pro-Shah forces besieged Tabriz with the help of Russians. After 11 months of siege and due to a lack of medicine and food, a group in Tabriz called the Rescue Squad led by Baskerville was formed to break the siege. Baskerville, who had attended the military service in the United States, decided to teach military exercises to young people instead of narrating the history of the dead, as he called it. At the same time, the death of Sayyid Hassan Sharifzadeh, a close friend of Baskerville, upset him so much that in response to the wife of the U.S. consul in Tabriz who asked him to leave the ranks of constitutionalists, he withdrew his passport and said, "The only difference between me and these people is my birthplace, and this is not a big difference." During the battle that took place in the Shanab Gazan between the rescue squad led by Baskerville and the besiegers, Baskerville was shot by a bullet that hit him in the chest. After his death, a large funeral was held at the American cemetery in Tabriz, which, according to Albert Charles of the British Council in Tabriz, was a very impressive ceremony. Shortly afterwards, Sattar Khan took Baskerville's rifle, which was in his hand at the time of his death, engraved his name and date of the death on it, and wrapped it in an Iranian flag, and sent it to his family in the United States. Soroush Isfahani, an Iranian poet, had written in mourning for him and his 300 Muslim friends, "We are 300 roses and a Christian rose. We don't scared to lose our heads. If that otherwise, we didn't dance in the middle of the lovers' celebration." 5 days after Baskerville's funeral, Sattar Khan sent the following telegram to his parents. "Persia much regrets honorable loss of your dear son in the cause of liberty. And we give our parole that future Persia will always revere his name in her history like Lafayette and will respect his venerable tomb. At present, a statue of him has been installed in the Constitutional House of Tabriz. Some in the United States have suggested that the April 19 be marked as Iranian-American Friendship Day, the anniversary of Howard Baskerville's death.